Thank you for listening to another episode of the Business of Fun podcast. I'm your host, Dave Wakeman. My guest today is Albert Bramante, and we will talk about Albert in just a moment. We are starting year 7 of the podcast here. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to get an episode out. Been struggling with my voice. I think you can still hear me. A few things kept me from sending these out. So hopefully we'll get some more episodes out. I've got a really great one that's going to follow this one as well. So we're getting back in the mix. A few things. Check out my website, davewakeman.com, and sign up for the Talking Tickets newsletter. There's been a lot of great stuff. I'm trying to do a little more long-form stuff for you, but send me your suggestions, things you'd like to hear or learn more about, dave@davewakeman.com. So let me go back to Albert Bramante. This was this was actually a really fun conversation, and I wasn't exactly sure what to expect when we first started scheduling this. But Albert comes to me with a background in NPL, neuro-linguistic programming. And it was really interesting to talk about it because he was able to talk about anxiety and fear because he works with a lot of actors and actresses. Anxieties come up regularly. And the way that we entered the conversation was talking about internal scripts and like the kind of loops and thought patterns that people have. And so we talked about everything about kind of gaining confidence in yourself, understanding yourself a little bit better, breaking bad habits or bad patterns, overcoming anxiety and stage fright, things like this, things that really, really apply to people in all areas of their life. This was fun. It was much different than I probably anticipated, and I enjoyed it. So here's my conversation with Albert Bramante on the business of fun. All right, I would like to welcome Albert Bramante to the Business of Fun. Albert, what's up?
Thank you, Dave, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you. You brought some great things to when you emailed me. You brought me some great ideas about psychology-based techniques for improving performances and fighting mental blocks. So I was like, this sounds like a great idea. I think that people probably at least in my experience, sometimes could use some help in overcoming some of their patterns, understanding the patterns that they're operating under and breaking those down. So I'm excited to see what we come up with today, because this is like a topic that I probably am a little interested in learning some things for myself. So bear with me. So anyway, let me ask you to introduce yourself so people understand what your point of view is from the very start, at the very start.
Excellent. Well, my name is Albert Bramante. My initial experience, in the entertainment and show business industries, I represent actors in New York City as a talent agent. So I represent professional actors for film, TV, theater, voiceover, print. And so in addition to that, I also have a PhD in psychology. So I work a lot on with people on mindset issues. I being my background also in NLP, so neuro programming. So I really help with mindset shifts. So and even with my actors, because the performing arts industry is a really competitive industry, and
they're also known for their mental health. There's no anxiety in actors and actresses, none whatsoever.
Oh no.
Okay, so that's a good foundation. See, this is like the stuff you should have started with, like going, oh, I also am an agent, because then that's it's a really great thing to start with. So let's start there then with the work you're doing in New York City with representing people. I made the joke about anxiety and actors and actresses, but really a lot of us deal with anxiety. And I think that when you talk about neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, it's an interesting thing because it's a practical way of approaching, or am I wrong? Kind of changing your behaviors and attitude and actions.
Yeah, it's really changing your behaviors and actions, and also your thought processes as well, and language, because all of that plays into it. When you change that, and consistent basis and implement those changes, you also change the wiring or neurology of your brain, which
Yeah.
is the true magic of NLP. Like the end point of NLP is like really changing the wiring in the brain.
Yeah. And one of the things that you mentioned in your email with me was you talked about scripts, and I guess I know NLP mostly because of, I think I learned it in like a sales class a long, long time ago, many, many lifetimes ago, it feels like. What do you mean by scripts? And like, how does that make people kind of anxious or afraid? And it makes them less likely to either like offer up new ideas or confront challenges that they're dealing with.
Sure. Well, the scripts I kind of talk about. I mean, there's the literal scripts, which we talk about for that actors and filmmakers and directors use. But I talk more about the scripts that I mention and emphasize are the internal ones that go in our mind, the ones that the written, preconceived thoughts, the preconceived, ideas that can sometimes hold us back. I'm not, powerful enough, or I'm not, wealthy enough. And then those thoughts and ideas start to run our lives on a daily basis. We either play it too small, we don't do the right actions that are needed. We don't promote services that we should be necessarily doing. So there's a lot of different things that can come up there, that can really impact our functioning. So the scripts I talk about are really what run our daily life, run in our mind, in a sense that, influences our behavior.
Yeah. And I think what I should have probably made that clear. Like we were talking about the actors and actresses and the scripts that like they're reading from and performing are different than we're talking about mental patterns. And that's the kind of when we refer to scripts unless I make another note, that's what we're going to be talking about. These scripts though that people are using, that are kind of making them behave, like you said, play too small or not promoting the services or the products that they offer. I think I'm curious. I know that like, how do I want to say it? I think a lot of times what happens is people, they don't have any basis in reality. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help people recognize these patterns, these scripts that are running their lives? Because I think that's to me sounds like the first step in fixing the patterns, like correcting them and doing things that that you're qualified for, that you should be doing, and that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, first of all, simply is just recognizing the language and just, gently, adopting new language patterns in a sense. For example, a lot of artists will sometimes introduce themselves or refer to themselves as starving artists or struggling artists. And the notion behind that is, while in their own reality they may feel that they're struggling, they may feel that they're starving, what they're actually doing when they use those words, it's your subconscious mind is saying, okay, your wish is my command. I'll make you starve. I'll keep you starving. So, what we can
Whatever you'd like.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. So we keep it, by just gently saying, you're a professional working actor, you're a professional working performer, or whatever it is that you're doing, that you're professional working, in that area.
It's sort of, the way you described it is the opposite of fake it till you make it, but there's a certain wisdom to fake it till you make it. Am I right?
Yes. That's I kind of say that's partially true and not true in the sense, I think when I say fake it till you make it, I often say sometimes what, the truth behind that is, start adopting the mentality that you've already made it. Start adopting the physiology and everything that you've already made it. And even in the communication, you've already kind of made it. Will that be a miracle? I'm not really sure it's going to be overnight, but I would definitely say that it's going to make a big difference. Because, I'll even use an example in my own business. When I was really building my agency, I was telling, other actors and, public events that, I was booking people on TV and film, and that, yeah, I was booking people in short films or little films,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until like maybe a month or so after saying that on a regular basis, I, booked three, in a row network primetime show, my actors on three network primetime shows right in a row, like within a week period, in a period of 1 week. So I, definitely think that, the whole idea of act as if it is already happening in a sense. So, and that's where NLP comes in also, because there's something called modeling, which you model successful people. That's where the whole NLP field came after, was started with modeling, like in your case with sales, modeling salespeople, or effective sales persons, and what approaches are they using, what approaches are they implementing. So, we look at that in a sense of, okay, what's working and how can we replicate or reproduce that behavior. So, if you want to teach somebody to be confident, so first thing is adopt the physical presence of a confident person. That's all. Shoulders, back, smile. So we start teaching those things because eventually the internal is going to match the external, and it will come off, and then that's how behavior change happens. So yeah, fake it till you make it has some, truth to it, and again, just pretending as if it's happening.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I know that there had been some crazy things that at the time that I've done because I just said, well, what's the worst that's going to happen is that it won't work and I'll just do it. Right. And then like, it's just that sort of courage. What I'm curious about though is I know that these things, they don't just lock in, right? Like these new scripts, these new actions, these new behaviors don't lock in. And what I struggle with helping people understand sometimes is like how to snap back, how to keep, because I know repetition is sort of the key to these new behaviors and these new ideas taking hold. I'm sure that like some techniques to help people kind of like they were focused on this new set of behaviors, these new ideas, this new belief system, and then like everything in life, you get a little sidetracked and you need to snap yourself back real quick. How does that work from your point of view?
Well, yeah, I think first of all, understanding that we're human beings, so it took us sometimes years to get to where we're at now. So sometimes I will tell you, if it takes years to do that, it's gonna take a little bit longer to go back, or at least it's not gonna be, an overnight thing. It takes work, and I often say, stay true to it, even if you find yourself going back into your old patterns. Just know, okay, I notice that it's happening, and go back to improving whatever the new set of behaviors, and just keep doing it over and over again. Some experts will tell you it takes 21 days to form a habit. It takes longer, I think, sometimes months, or even years of consistent practice to develop a habit. So I would say just keep being consistent with that. And, if you fall, slightly, falter or slip here and there, you're human. And, just get right back up and keep going.
Well, yeah, I forget. I know I saw a recent study. I think it said 66 days, and then it was like going maybe. So I think that's like a really important lesson for people to understand is that these habits, they don't just all of a sudden you magically snap your fingers, and then everything's magically perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect, and we are all human. We all like mess up with these things. Yeah. So. Now, a large portion of this podcast are people that market and sell sports and entertainment, right? So the other side of the business, not reading the scripts, but they are giving the scripts to the people. And one of the things that I was curious to ask about is how this thing applies to people who are marketing and selling the performing arts. So they're not the ones who are standing up in front of everything, because I talked about at the start. Like almost like I had a plan when we started talking about the sales class I took, the training with NLP. But how can people use these kind of tools in their marketing and selling efforts?
The first thing that really comes with is being confident in yourself. And one of the things that human beings are really good at, even on a subconscious level, is picking up if somebody's authentic or not. And we've all known that if you don't have a really good sales tactic or authenticity in sales, you come across as the odd or the annoying or the creepy sales guy or girl. And it's like, okay,
The used salesman.
I'm shutting down because if you don't believe your message, you don't believe that you can do this, it's going to come across in the way you sell. It's going to come across in your messages, your congruence, because the one thing, also with we talk with NLP is there's body language cues, there's vocal inflections, and you can come up with all these different scripts. Like, okay, I can give the sales routine, I can read the sales copy, I know what I'm doing out there. Yep. But if your neurology doesn't believe that, your body's not going to lie, and it's going to come off as, again, being inauthentic, insincere, and that's going to turn off the buyer, the buyers immediately. So, and then also just using it, like the best salespeople are the types that you don't even know you're being sold to until you have your wallet open, if you think about it. So again, if I think all salespeople should have NLP experience, because you have to build rapport. You have to build rapport with the customer, and they have to see you as an equal, not as a salesperson. Because we all, I think as just human beings, we just have when we see a salesperson, and we know there's a salesperson, we run, we tighten up. That's why even the television commercials have to get really creative in their messaging, because what do we all do when we're watching? We either turn it off or we fast forward, or, so that's why like all the commercials now have to be really entertaining.
Yeah. To me, this really sticks, because one of the things that I try to tell people all the time is I go, you have got to stop with the hat in hand point of view. Like, people are doing you a favor when they're having a conversation with you, if they're buying a ticket, or if they're going through, walking you through like a marketing plan, whatever the situation is, you have to act like you deserve to be there. Like, you have to be a peer. And it was amazing example that I have was I was working in politics on some campaign stuff, and we were working with this candidate, and the guy was a managing partner of a big law firm. And the guys who I came into the project with, they were so subservient. They were so like in awe of the guy. And then I went in there and I was just like going, listen. And I just was like, listen, this is how it is. I'm the expert here. You've brought me in to help you because you don't know what you're doing, and I do. And they were just like, they walked out and they go, how could you talk to him like that? How could you act that way? I go, because he's a professional and so am I. And we are on equal footing. And if we don't have respect for each other, and we don't act, like partners in this, it'll never work. And they were just like blown away. And they never overcame it. It was really weird. You have to. It's just like essential. Like you deserve to be in these rooms.
Yeah, and that's the confident you do. And that if you're shy or subservient, even as a salesperson, the customer is going to pick that up immediately and be like, okay, I'm out. So, I think even approaching it like, with, yes, it's important to make the sale, but I think, coming with the mindset of like, you have a service that can help them. If they take it, great. If not, that's on them. And
100%.
Yeah. And I think that's how with the NLP helps. If we come with that mindset, like, look, you don't need their sale. They need you. They need to buy that product. You got something that can help them, and if they want it, great. If not, that's on them. Because I see a lot, especially with the internet now, of all these aspiring salespeople. I'm like, I really want to hear from you. I hope to hear from you soon. I'm like, no. That's
No, that's exactly right. No.
yeah.
You
I don't want to.
I have value. You want it, you need it. You better call me. It's not like you're not doing me a favor. I'm doing you a favor. I've got something you need.
Exactly, and that's anytime I think in any interaction, if you're already operating on a weakness, you kind of lost this. You lost the sale, you lost the interview, you lost whatever it is, because again, it's that you have in the confidence is extremely important.
Yeah, yeah, and I know it's a struggle for people, and this is why it's great to talk to you about this right now, because it seems too that like so many of the words and the language and like the messages that people get, they are barraged with these things that tell them that they're supposed to be subservient, that they're supposed to be lesser than, that they're supposed to have like an inferiority complex, and I know we've kind of hit upon this, but like, what do you do to steel yourself from that, that onslaught? Like, how do you build up that resilience? Because I know it's different than just getting back on track, like we talked about earlier. It's like, how do you build that, especially when it's a new idea, you're building that kind of armor around yourself. Like, because obviously you can tell I ain't struggling for the confidence one bit, but not everybody can be me.
Exactly, and
And I didn't
confidence.
always have it. So let me be clear. I didn't always have the flavor I have now.
I think through resilience, I think through experience, I think through practice is important. Getting out there, giving, sales talks, giving sales presentations, even after the local organizations, just doing it over and over again, rehearsing it over and over again, ripping the Band-Aid off, confronting the fear head on is the way to do that. And then, of course, have, either a coach or somebody who can provide technical guidance after each one, and look at each experience as a learning experience. Even if you bomb, which that's common. We're human beings. That's going to happen. I can guarantee anybody who's in
First
sales.
talk I gave ever was such a freaking bomb. I was like that airplane when the guy's like sweating. That was me.
Yeah,
And then at the very end, this guy asked me a really ridiculous question that I was able to hammer him on. And it made like after that, I was like never struggled because I was like, well, if people are asking me this dumb a question, I can do this. And so
yeah.
yeah.
And most of the time we're so in our head that it's always like worst case scenario that and most of the time it's not as bad as we think it's going to be. And even if it doesn't go well, I think the important thing is to learn from it. So another thing from NLP that I have is that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Yeah.
So
That's
if you bomb, okay, great. What did you learn from that? What can you do differently now? You make this presentation, nobody buys your product. Okay, what can you do differently now? What feedback? Because again, that's feedback that you can use.
yeah. Oh, yeah. The idea of being so in your head and making things bigger, that is so true. And I tell people all the time, I go, once you get going too, like really it's the anticipation that's the worst part of it. Because people are like, oh, how can you do this and how you do that? And I go, like, I've done it so many times, I don't even think about it anymore. And I was like going, once you get kind of past doing it a few times, you know what to expect and anticipate. Sure, you're still like going, I hope I have all the, I know everything. You have a little butterfly, but it's not overwhelming. But one thing that you hit on, right? Because we talked about the experience and the practice, the resilience, but you talked about resilience. And I think resilience is a tough one for people to understand because it's, it can seem kind of esoteric for people. Like, especially like, how do you have resilience when you're just trying to do something new? How do you develop that muscle? So I'm curious, using NLP, how do you how do you teach people to be resilient? Because that's, people think that's sort of a lagging thing and not a leading thing. But, how do you, it's like courage, right? How do you build courage? Just like step by step. It's the same, to me, it's the same thing, but I was wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, no, it's step by step and just by doing it, and making those mistakes, and then, coming to that understanding and realization that you made that mistake, but you're still standing back up. It's not the end of the world. And learning from it, and taking that and learning from it, and just keep going, and get up again the next day and do the next presentation, or do the next, venue, and just keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I even say this like with like, speakers, or, even podcast hosts, for instance, if you look at your first show versus show 100, there's...
You must have listened to my first one, Albert. It was not good.
But, you may have thought it was not good, but maybe it was fine. Your audience may not have, picked up on that, but, we get better in what we do, with anything. Not just anything. Our first presentation and our 100th presentation is going to be dramatically different, because we've learned to implement along the way. And so the only way to build resilience is by, you fall off that bike, get back up again.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you make that, you bomb that stuff, do it again, get back out there.
Yeah. Now, this conversation, I want to shift it just a touch, not really in a crazy way, but like in a way that I'm curious to see what you're going to say about this. Because one of the issues that I have when I talk with people who are selling theater or selling sports or any kind of live experience is they sell these experiences in a generic manner. And my point of view, which probably is going to make you laugh because you're sitting here with talking about NLP and like your mindset and everything, is each one of these events, each one of these experiences is once in a lifetime. Because if you go see a Broadway show, even if it goes off 8 times a year, or 8 times a week, you're never going to be in the same place at the same time with the same group of people under the same conditions ever again. It's a once in a lifetime experience. How can NLP and all these things you teach and think about, how can they apply to help people break that pattern?
Well, I would say, work with the person in front of you, pick up on their cues, and while sales scripts are good guidance frameworks, but you should always discard them, because it's, the person in front of you should be really your script, and show enthusiasm for your product, the product too. And I would say just be ready to go at any moment. What's the person doing? What's the person's background? Use the person's name, a few times. So, just being flexible is the important thing. Is like, it is a once in a lifetime thing. You tap into their interest. That whether it's that Broadway show, it's that magic, it's that one performance. Because it's live, no performance will ever be the same. Yes, the script and the music may be the same, but there's something about just that live audience that'll never be the same. You'll never sit in the same audience. With a sporting event, it's not the same event. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, because there'll never be another game like that. There'll never be another thing like that. And people are going for the experiences too. So when you're targeting, you're selling, you got to sell the emotional experience. Yeah. And especially if they have kids, you can even, use that as a weapon. Like, think about the life, experience you're going to have, for your son or your daughter growing, that's now going to experience this for the first time and make history.
Yeah.
So,
and if I'm not mistaken, emotion's really at the heart of NLP, right? And is that, I mean, I get it. So I'm asking this question. So I know that, like, I can't put myself in the position of somebody else at this point because I'm so familiar with the ideas. But is it hard to help people understand how emotion plays into this to NLP, or do people kind of like naturally click on this? Because I think like too many people want to say they're rational. Like, no, everybody's irrational. Everybody's
No.
driven by emotion.
Even the fact that you're irrational, if claims that either you're burying your emotions, or so you're still being influenced by your emotions,
Yeah.
even when you're a rational person.
Of course.
Gently educate, but that's really what sales is like appealing to someone's emotions.
Mhm.
That's why, if you look at some of the advertising, the ones that hit the heartstrings are the ones that are going to be most effective commercials because they tug the emotions, they hit the emotional aspects. Another example, like when I was growing up in the 80s, there was the classic "Say No to Drug" commercial where they would have a guy sitting in front of a stove, cracking an egg,
Cracking the
saying, "This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs." And he questioned, and that wasn't really that effective because people are not connecting eggs to the brain until you see somebody struggling for picture now the same type of ad, but have someone struggling for their life, or picture two parents that are crying over their child's grave.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be much more powerful because now you're tugging on the emotions.
Well, it's not even thinking about being more powerful. It is more powerful because the Don't Smoke campaigns were all about the people with the tracheotomies, with lung cancer, and like how horrible these things were to them. So it's not just like you thinking this; it's like actually the data will back it up. It's like, well, it'll make people stop, and it's just, to me, it's tap into the emotions. So Albert, where can people find out more about you and what the work you're doing around NLP, or the work you're doing with all your clients as far and your actors and the actresses, with and without anxiety?
Yeah. Follow me. I'm on LinkedIn as Albert Bramante. I post all the content there. My website, albertbramante.com. Also on Instagram, I'm at Dr. Albert Bramante. So feel free to reach out to me there. And also my book, is available on Amazon, Kindle, and audiobook. So I have it on Audible as well.
What's the name of the book?
It's called Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. And It was published in 2024. So
awesome. Well, Albert, thank you for doing this.
Well, I thank you, Dave, again for inviting me. And it's really, I really enjoyed it.
This was great. I learned a lot. So that's like really the key to the thing for me is like, if I learned something, then I'm sure the people listening have learned something as well.
Yes.
What did you think of my conversation with Albert? Send me an email. My name, dave@davewakeman.com, and let me know. Also, send me your suggestions for guests and conversations that you'd like to have. I'm curious who you'd like to hear from or what you're thinking about right now. So definitely send me those ideas and suggestions and thoughts to dave@davewakeman.com. I get them. I answer. It's cool like that. We have a conversation. Make sure to check out the Talking Tickets website. You can get it by visiting my website, davewakeman.com, or talkingtickets.substack.com. Like I mentioned at the start, I'm doing longer form stuff. So I'm trying to answer bigger questions, give you a little more analysis. It's just where I'm interested right now. So let me know what things would be meaningful to you to hear about. As always, again, my throat is still bothering me a little bit. But as always, I want to thank you so much for being here. I couldn't do the podcast, especially not for 7 years, without you. So thank you. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy.